I was taught that white folks were the reason why I wasn't where I could be in life. Racism was because I wasn't where I could be in life. Racism was the reason why I didn't have the opportunity that I thought I deserved.
I am with Zeek Arkham, who is a very interesting Twitter follow. And I was really captured by some of his tweets regarding his political evolution. And so I thought I would bring him on here so that he could discuss it and describe it personally to everybody out there. Zeek, how are you today, my man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So could you discuss a little bit about your family and how you got into the police force and your own political evolution?
My family is in law enforcement. I'm actually third generation law enforcement. My grandfather was a court officer for the New York State courts. So was my uncle. And then I joined law enforcement. And I had always been taught by that side of my family to respect law enforcement, not have a chip on my shoulder, to, just be a law abiding person. And, I was. Only problem was my father's side of the family was very radicalized as far as, putting their skin color above everything else. So my father's side of the family was very anti-law enforcement. My father's side of the family, had been, I have several members of my father's side of the family who were locked up. Um, I had uncles who I hadn't really met outside of prison walls,
Wow.
for decades. So I grew up around both sides, and my father, being the person that he was, wanted us to be around his side of the family more. So I grew up with that, and I grew up with their indoctrination, and my mom's side of the family did what they could, and I always had a huge level of love and respect for them. But when you're around one side more, you seem to learn those lessons more. So I grew up. I wouldn't say I so much distrusted white people, but I did have a chip on my shoulder as far as my position in life and where I was, and just looking to blame someone for it. Excuse me. So I was taught that white folks were the reason why I wasn't where I could be in life. Racism was because I wasn't where I could be in life. Racism was the reason why I didn't have the opportunity that I thought I deserved. So, I fell into those lessons,
And
and even though even though I didn't have any animosity towards white people specifically, I did blame racism for a lot of what I was going through. I said, I couldn't have this because of the color of my skin. I don't have this because of racism. I don't have this because of white supremacy. I fell into the same excuses that a lot of people have today. A lot of, especially young black people, have today. So it took a lot of me getting over that. And I always like to say it was my mom actually who started who kind of gave me a good kick in the pants and started me on towards looking at myself and finding things out for myself. My mom had a pretty infamous speech with me one time where I was mad and I was sort of ranting, and I said, I don't have this and I don't have that, and I grew up without really having a father figure in the household, because my father was there, but that's really all he was. He didn't really teach me anything about being a man, or he wasn't really a father. He felt that he just had to be there. So I always said that, I grew up, really without a father figure, and I grew up without this, and I grew up without that, and I didn't go on vacations, and I listed to my mom all the things I didn't have while growing up, and her answer to me was, "You're 100% right. Now get over it, because no one's gonna feel sorry for you."
yeah,
And after I got over my feelings, and I got over my butt hurt, I sat down and I said, "You know what? She's right. No one's gonna feel sorry for me." So that was kind of like what catapulted me into sort of starting to think for myself, and sort of starting to understand that, a lot of my problems in life were self-inflicted, which was which was right.
yeah. And when you got that kick in the butt, what was the process like for you of your evolution? Because at that point, you weren't a member of the police force, right? Or were you?
No, I wasn't. I
You
wasn't.
weren't. So what got you into becoming a policeman? What drove you?
Honestly, like I said, I'd always had a respect for law enforcement. Like I said, I had the indoctrination from my father's side of the family that I was a target because of the color of my skin. But yeah, I really didn't have too many options left in life, and I said, you know what, let me try policing. And of course, my family didn't want me to do that. My father's side family didn't want me doing it. But I said, you know what, but I'm going to go in there and I'm going to be the cop who exposes everything. I'm going to be the guy who exposes, what's going on in there. I'm going to show how racist the department is. So I had a chip on my shoulder going into the academy. I had a chip on my shoulder the first couple years I was a cop. You just even to the point during Obama's election, there was a cop. I overheard in the locker room a cop explaining how he didn't like Obama and didn't trust Obama, and I got mad and I cursed him out, and I was, you don't like him because he's black, and that's exactly what's going on with you, and it was completely uncalled for. I actually had to apologize to that cop years later. I had to find him and apologize to him. But I was into all the indoctrination. I thought that uh, 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 here I am in this department that's full of racism, and here I am in this police locker room that's full of racism. And it was actually the opposite. I had more cops looking to help me out, or looking to sit down and talk with me, or find out who I was as a person. And like I guess I went into the police department looking to expose something, and all I did was expose that cops are human beings just like everybody else, and cops really just want to do their jobs and go home. And cops, for the overwhelming majority, are good people who got into it for the right reasons.
And when you were going through this, did you feel like a dichotomy inside of you? Because all of these preordained, these pre-beliefs that you had about what you would find, it doesn't seem like you found. And what was like that going on inside of you as the ground kind of proverbially might have been shaking within, if I can describe it in that way?
I kind of, like I said, I kind of red pilled myself because I found, I thought that policing was this inherently racist institution, and found out that it wasn't.
Did you
I
find
thought that,
any
I
racism?
mean, did I find that there are some cops that shouldn't be on the job because they're just a little too salty, and they have, they have too much of an unfavorable view, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
But are they in it for the wrong reasons? Are they in it just to beat up on black folk, or just go out there and randomly kill black men? No, I can say no cop goes onto the job with that attitude. Like, I'm looking forward to killing someone today. No cop has that attitude. Um, did I find them to make some jokes that might have been a little offensive? Sure, but then I found out cops have sort of a sick sense of humor anyway, just because of everything that we see during the course of the day. So you make a joke to sort of to deal with it.
Yeah, you have to
But
diffuse
yeah,
that. Yeah. Inside, whenever
yeah,
you see all the evil and the hurt, there's something that by joking about it, you're releasing all of that emotion that one might feel. And as men, we generally hold that back, and that's just kind of like a form of releasing it. So it makes sense that you would hear some salty jokes once in a while.
yeah. The thing with cops is they're human beings, and if you tell a human being over and over again, I don't trust you, I don't like you, you're racist, you're this, you're that, and it becomes a game for you to try to ruin their lives, or you're just continuously painted in this unfavorable light by politicians and elected officials, or the quote unquote activists out there, the ones who get paid to keep racism going. Cops are human beings as well, and cops are going to become extremely frustrated with everything that's going on in the world. So it's almost like a cause and effect kind of thing. A lot of cops don't want to have this us versus them mentality, but when you're someplace where that's all that's going on, and it's almost like the neighborhood is built into an us versus them mentality, and you're thrust into it. It's like I say, cops are human beings, so they're going to do the best they can to fight that, but a lot of them get swept up into it.
And have you seen that obviously during the BLM riots after George Floyd, that the hatred towards the cops was at an all-time high, which just disgusted me because, like you said, I recognize that you have a tough job and you're trying to get home to your family and do it the best that you can. Have you seen that level die down? Have you had apologies from people that might have dug into you at that time today?
Not no, no, not at all.
Not at all. Wow. I find it really interesting how somebody gets embedded into an indoctrination and they believe that their ideology must prevail at all costs, and they don't see the evil that they themselves are doing and never redress it, never apologize for it. Is there some way that we can bring this about for humanity, or is this just the nature that we have as egoic beings?
I think it's just the nature we have. I read a scientific study one time that said asking someone to deviate from their own deep held beliefs is one of the hardest things you can ever ask anyone to do. You know, if they feel a certain way, they're going to fight as hard as they can to preserve that belief. And it's only really those of us who go into something with a continuous open mind who don't who are able to change their minds. You know, I went into policing and I didn't know I had an open mind at the time, but or I guess you could say I had no choice but to have an open mind because I had all these cops who were extending hands of friendship towards me and extending hands of brotherhood towards me. And you know, they grew up one way. They had a completely different racial background than I did, had completely different skin color than I did, and they looked all they saw was, hey, he's another cop, and I want to know about him. I want to be his friend. I want to. He seems like a decent guy. I just want to find out about him. And I had this huge, massive chip on my shoulder during the academy, and it cost me a lot of what could have been really good friendships. And instead, you know, I went into my first assignment, and there were more guys, and they're just trying to find out who I was and trying to find out what kind of guy I was. And I almost had no choice but to say, you know, why am I so angry? Why do I have this chip on my shoulder? Why am I so distrusting? Why do I have this much animosity towards people who've never done anything to me? Especially, you know, in a situation like this where I'm going to need them to have my back, and they're going to need me to have their backs. So, you know, you kind of get forced into it. You know, it's only the most stubborn of people who keep that bad attitude and just say, no matter what happens, you know, I'm going to I'm going to have this opinion first before anything else. And it also just it takes it's also a lack of education, I would say. If you can look into the face of overwhelming evidence and go, but I'm just going to look at the evidence that supports my view, however minuscule or however it may be. I am only going to consider the evidence that supports my view. To me, it shows a lack of intelligence.
Yeah, it's I think that oftentimes people are so close-minded that they, as you stated, they desire to keep the pre-established beliefs, and it's so hard to let go of them and to admit that they were wrong and to apologize for them. And I've seen you on social media that you make fun and you playfully mock and sometimes ardently go after those pushing the hateful narratives, or that you're not the right type of black man, etc. What is the best way to deal with such people? Because I see a lot of that myself in terms of my own posts. Obviously, I'm not black, but I'm not scared to stand up for what I think is right and true. So do you have a specific strategy that you use to kind of deprogram, if you want to say that, even though it's very difficult, such people?
No, I call them out. I call them out, and I say, hey, listen, this is who you are, and this is who I am. I'm not. I learned a long time ago. You can't control people's reactions towards you, but you can control your reaction to them. So instead of being angry about it, and instead of going after them and with and returning the same hateful rhetoric, I make fun of them and I expose them for who they are, and I have fun with it. And hopefully, somewhere in the recesses of their mind, they're going, you know what? Maybe he's right. But I mean, it's to me, it's I have to laugh about it because it's to me, it's not worth getting angry about at all.
I agree. And my strategy personally is that I'm not fighting with that person. I know that I'm probably not going to be able to change their mind, but what I am after are the hearts and minds of those who are reading the interaction. And I think that when you do that, I believe that you have a even more profound effect in shaping those people's minds who don't necessarily have an egoic position in it because they're not being attacked personally. So I think that that is where I try to be effective, even though I'm not 100%. And I think that you actually can be, I've seen you be very effective because I've seen some of the responses to what you've said. So you actually are, in a way, red pilling many other people that are reading what you're writing, not that individual, though, that you're after or mocking.
No, absolutely. I'm not. Listen. When I go after guys like Brooklyn Dad or David Hogg or Harry Sisson, I'm not. I have no doubt I'm going to. I'm not looking to change their minds. I'm not looking to debate with Brooklyn Dad. However, I am looking to debate. To change the minds of anyone who might be reading those interactions. I am looking to change the minds of anyone who sees that and thinks he's telling the truth and then scrolls down and sees my post and go, hey, wait a minute, but what he said makes a little bit more sense. I recently had a friend, and I see her as like a little sister of types. She and I are close, and she revealed to me that I'm the one who started her on her conservative, more sort of right leaning journey.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that it was because she watched a couple of my videos and saw a couple of my responses. And even though she had the same experiences I did growing up, that because of the color of her skin, she was at a disadvantage, and because of quote unquote white supremacy and white privilege, that there was something wrong with this country. She watched my videos, and she began to turn around, and now she's reading stuff from Candace Owens, and she's reading stuff from Thomas Sowell. And but it was my responses, it was me speaking out that started her on her way. And I'm proud of that because
You
a
should
you know
be.
I saw her, I see her as a little sister of types. I'm very fond of her. Her and her husband, they've been to my house. I had them over for a barbecue and all that. um but it's you're impacting someone's life. I've spoken to my mom about my views before, and my mom, who grew up during the civil rights era and has a lot of painful memories from that era, is now starting to come around, even to the fact that the last election for governor, she lives in Florida right now. She was asking, who's on our side, and she was speaking as someone who's more conservative.
Mm.
So it's by speaking out and by putting the message out there, you never know whose life you're impacting. You never know who's seeing your message and deciding to come along with you for the journey. And that's why I speak out.
And that's a tremendous service that you're doing for not only those people, but for humanity as well. When you can show people what is actual truth and help them gain a different perspective, that power that you have on social media it ripples out through the world. That's a really wonderful thing that it enables, and that you have that voice. So good. Your brothers, however, are still on the BLM side, I read.
Yeah, I have two brothers who are still hardcore BLM advocates. They believe that BLM is a force for good. They both support. They even my sister-in-law, married to one of my brothers. Uh, she put up a post right before the 2020 election that said that policing is about preserving white fragility. So so that led to a very contentious time between us. Because my job has been, I've purposely on my job tried to speak to Black people in order to help them see more of a human face behind policing. I've done way more than my share of quote unquote community policing, trying to reach out to different kids, just doing Big Brother programs, things like that, to try to put more of a face onto policing. And for her to say that was extremely hurtful, just because, a everything I've done in my career, in my life, in my views, none of it has been for quote unquote white fragility. So to me, that's a degrading term for someone like me who's a cop. It's a racist term because you're trying to say that white people are somehow fragile, and that my job, all it does is uphold their feelings and their fragility. So yeah, I didn't take too kindly to that phrase and that post that she put up on social media. But yeah, I still have two brothers who they don't see it, and like I said, it's because they refuse to see it. When you're stuck in your bubble, the world only makes sense from certain angles, and you fight as hard as you can to make that world make sense from those angles. Stepping out of your bubble takes you into a certain place of uncomfortableness, and I'm proud to say I'm not afraid to step into uncomfortableness because I've always said I'm on the side of the truth above all else.
Well, you step into uncomfortableness every single day as a policeman. You do it every time that you go online and you espouse views that your own family will push back at you for. So obviously you're somebody that is very comfortable stepping into the unknown, which is something that I wish more people would have, because we're all caught up in our little silos and we want to be protected. And, and when I hear somebody like you said at the end of your Scott Adams video that there will be many white people that are going to start to push back. And I grew up playing basketball with most of the guys on the court, a lot of the time were black, and I had absolutely no problems with them. And I love them. And some of my best friends are my black basketball friends. And when a few years ago, the last time I was in Los Angeles, I was with my 6'5" buddy who was telling me today that race is the only thing that's important. And it just broke my heart because I'm so close with him. And now I see all the pushback online and I feel myself pushing back. Like, I don't even want to be around you guys if you're going to be like that. That doesn't mean individuals like you or my friend Kevin or Ron or my basketball buddies who I know are decent people. But why would I want to expose myself to people that dislike me based on the indoctrination that they've had from the leftists?
Well, when I first saw Scott Adams and his video that went super viral, I said, okay, let me, because my initial reaction was, wow, this is kind of racist. And I said, okay, let me take a step back and really look at what he's saying. And when I watched the video again and took all the emotion out of it and took all the visceral feeling out of it, I said, you know what, he's not wrong, because I can, if you go on TikTok, if you go on Instagram, if you go on Twitter, I see racist comments from black content creators every day. And then their excuse is, oh, well, black people can't be racist. Yes, black people can be racist. They absolutely can be racist. But I see racist content from black creators every day. And it doesn't surprise me that there's a pushback saying, you know what? No, you can't continue to talk about us like this. You can't continue to put this kind of content out there. You can't continue to make these kind of videos making fun of us and calling us this and calling us that, and you hide it under, well, we can't be racist because we don't have the power. Okay, but if I'm a white person who isn't racist and I'm seeing this video and you're accusing me of racism and you're accusing me of this, you're accusing me of that, you're calling me this, you're calling me that, like my sister-in-law put out, policing only enforces white fragility, and she's proud to put that kind of thing out. How am I supposed to feel? Am I now supposed to look at every black person like I would love to be friends with them, but I don't want to be called racist, or I would love to be friends with them, but I don't want to have to now tiptoe around their feelings and tiptoe around their emotions. I have to say the right thing all the time, or else I'm worried about them flipping out on me. I can't just treat them like a human being. I wasn't mad at his video after I thought about all that, and I said, he makes a great point. So you can look at that message, accept it, and wonder how we can move on from what he's saying, what a lot of people are thinking, or you can be butthurt about it. And a lot of people chose to be butthurt about it, but I put out my video saying, you know what? I get it. I get where he's coming from. Let's change before things get worse.
Well,
Let's change before we're back in the situation that my grandfather faced, that my mom faced. Let's change. Let's get better. But there are too many people who profit off of hate and division. Booker T. Washington said that there's a class of people who they profit off of hate and division. Now I'm paraphrasing them because it's too lucrative for them. So they're going to do what they can to keep things going, and they're going to do what they can to bring the problems of the black person before society. You see Al Sharpton, who's made a career out of race hustling. You see Jesse Jackson, who's made a career out of race hustling. Nowadays, you have Sean King, who I'm not even sure if he's black, but he's made a career out of race hustling. Ibram X. Kendi, Tariq Nasheed, all of them make a career out of race hustling. If racism were to end tomorrow, they would do everything they could to bring it back. BLM, who have profited massively from race hustling. So until we tell these people we're not going to listen to you any further, there's going to be a divide.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kendi's quote that the only cure to past discrimination is present discrimination, the only cure to present discrimination is future discrimination, is just keeping the cycle going. And it's just, it will never end. It becomes an eye for an eye, and then the whole world is blind. But the thing is, I did not feel any real forms of racism growing up. You know, I grew up in the Bay Area, you know, kind of like a liberal community, and I didn't feel that at all. But now it's just feels like it's kind of gone in whatever might have been in the 50s, 60s, 40s, you know, it's kind of gone in reverse. And I just want to, first of all, say thank you for being one of those people that can see it and helping to end it. And I just hope that we discontinue listening to the Kennedys of the world that want to perpetuate the racism for their own financial gain.
Well, like I said, you know, to them it's profitable. To them, they now have a platform. They can keep black people angry. And if you keep black people angry, they you know, you can continue to say, okay, but I'm going to be your savior from your anger. Just like we saw with COVID, if you keep people scared, and this is people of all races, if you keep people scared, you can control them. Same thing with people like Kendi, same thing with people like Tariq Nasheed. If you keep people angry, they're easier to control because you can say, well, you know, you need me to continue to be the answer to your problem. Man, when in fact, they're the problem. You know, when you talk to people and you ask them, you know, do you honestly want racism to end? The majority of people out there are going to say, absolutely. Yeah. I would love for racism to end. But people like Tariq Nasheed, people like Ibram X. Kendi, this is their business. So they're going to do whatever they can to keep black people angry and keep them from really wanting to end racism.
How do they get
that's basically what Booker T. Washington was discussing.
How do they get their hooks continually into black people when there are individuals such as yourself that are exposing them? You would imagine at some point you've seen Kendi's Boston University program, the Anti-Racist Research Center, that's fallen apart, thankfully. I mean, is there a sun on the horizon? Is the sun rising once again from this darkness that we've been in for the last few years?
Well, the thing is, it's the easiest thing in the world to be a victim. So if I went for a job interview and I wound up not getting a job, mind you, I could not have had the qualifications. Mind you, there could have been someone who was better qualified. But if I didn't get the job, and I can look at someone like Ibram X. Kendi, and he goes, well, you didn't get the job because of your skin color. You didn't get the job because you're black. That's an easier pill to swallow than I just wasn't qualified or I bombed the interview. If someone doesn't want to date me, it could be that I'm just not their type. But Tariq Nasheed can go, well, they didn't want to date you because you're black. And that's an easier pill to swallow than just, hey, listen, I just wasn't their type. Move on. If whatever problems are going on in my life, if I didn't get a bank loan, if I didn't, you know, whatever, I can just say, hey, listen, it's because I'm black. And that's a much easier pill to swallow than anything else. And that's where guys like, you know, Sean King, Tariq Nasheed, Ibram X. Kendi, that's where it comes in. It's easy to be a victim because nothing's your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You're a victim. Instead of standing up and taking accountability, hey, listen, I didn't get that bank loan because the bank just wasn't giving out loans that day, or just because I didn't have the financial background. I didn't get the job because I bombed the interview. I didn't, there was a better candidate. Herman Cain in the Uncle Tom documentary talks about how he went, he kept getting passed up for promotions, and finally he went to his bosses and said, "Why didn't I get the promotion?" And they said, "You didn't get the promotion because this guy had a master's degree and you didn't." And so he went and got his master's degree. And the
I
next time they
remember
had
that. Yeah.
promotions, he got promoted. And he was actually able to change the outlook of one of his bosses because of how he worked and his demeanor. And like I said, that's why I operate the way I do. If I can change someone's demeanor, change someone's outlook, it's worth it. And I've had people message me before and say, "Hey, listen, you changed my mind about a lot. There's a lot you spoke about, and you made sense, and you changed my mind." And that, like I said, that's why I do it.
Well, congratulations on your success with those people. I'm going to ask you something that is slightly controversial because you were talking about the pushback that is coming. And now I put myself, and this is kind of a Scott Adams framing, so I just want to frame it in that way. And this is not something that I would do, but I'm just playing devil's advocate. And many people out there might not like it. But let's say I'm an employer, and recently a Equinox trainer in New York won $12 million because she claimed that she was fired for being Black, even though she was late 40 times in the year or something like that. And she won $12 million. Now, I take a look at that as an employer and I say, if I hire somebody with skin color that is Y, whatever, yellow, let's just say, and these people seem to have an advantage in a woke culture, in a woke place like New York City with the courts. Now, I'm going to be less likely to hire somebody with skin color that is yellow, because I believe that is going to have a negative effect potentially on my business if I hire somebody that doesn't have the same power to be able to sue me and claim discrimination when they're late 40 times. And I think that this is some of the pushback that may or may not be coming as people become, unfortunately, scared to hire somebody with yellow skin, let's say. Is there logic in that? Is that the correct game theory that somebody would take, given the situation that is available today?
I would say yes and no, because I do understand where that would come from. I do understand the apprehension. I would also say, judge me based on my individual merit.
Absolutely.
Don't judge me based on what you read in the newspaper about someone who looked like me, or what you saw on the news about someone who had my skin color. Judge me based on my individual merit. This is why I say don't. I'm so opposed to when you have people like Joe Biden who go, "Oh, I'm just looking to marry to hire a Black female,"
Yeah, for the
or
Supreme
the
Court.
only the, yeah, or he said the same thing for Kamala Harris. I'm only going to hire someone who is a Black female. My only picks are going to be Black females, or just they got to be Black. Don't hire me based on my skin color. I don't want it. Hire me based on what I've done in my career. I've made a great career in law enforcement. I've received a lot of training. I've received a lot of accolades. Uh, Hire me based on that. Don't take skin color out of it. Honestly, I think skin color should be taken off of any job application. My resume doesn't have my skin color on it. You know, Hire me based on my qualifications. Hire me based on what I've done.
Yes.
If someone is apprehensive because they saw this news article and now they think all Black people are going to be like that, well, then shame on them, because that's actually not the case. But I do support uh, uh, entrepreneurs hiring who they want to hire. So if they think they'd have a better outcome with a white person, I'll move on. You know, my resume, my qualifications speak for themselves. If you're that close minded where you think that the actions of one Black person are indicative of all Black people, I can't help that. I'm going to move on. I'm going to work for somebody, and I'm going to be a stellar employee for them. But yeah, that's why I would say yes and no.
Okay, well, that's a fair answer. And I'm all behind Martin Luther King's "Judge me by the content of my character, not the color of my skin. May my 4 little children be judged as such." And obviously that is the correct way to go, is to base hiring and your friendship on an individual's merit, not based on this, this immutable characteristic that we were born with. It's just, that's what we've learned over time. And unfortunately, I think that we're moving from judging people based on their immutable, based on their merit, back to their immutable characteristics. We're moving back into a tribal realm, as the leftists would like it. That is, they want everybody to coalesce and to be one against the oppression. And that is the problem that I see. It's becoming harder to do that. And I still want to do that with my friends. I still want to do that with whoever I hire. It's just become harder when one side is fomenting this revolution that you see, that has probably attacked you personally, that you see from your sister-in-law's post about policing is defending white fragility. And that is kind of what I'm seeing today. And, I'm firmly, obviously, very much vehemently against it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, most people are. Most people just want to. I live on Long Island, and most of my neighbors are white. They don't care about my skin color. They don't care about my background, how I grew up, or anything. All they want to know is, am I a good person?
Yeah.
Can their daughters play with my daughter?
Yeah.
Can I maintain my property? If they invite me for a barbecue, can I show up and be a good presence? They don't care about my skin color. I was told over and over again, oh, don't move out there because it's going to be racist. Oh, don't move out there because you're going to go through this, you're going to go through that. None of my neighbors care.
Yeah.
If anything, they're looking for a new person to be friends with. When I moved in, all my neighbors came over and shook my hand. Hey, welcome to the neighborhood. Man, they didn't care. Like, they couldn't care less about my skin color. Couldn't care less about where I came from. They've invited me to barbecues. They've invited me to watch sports. Football, whatever, at their house. Their daughters have played with my daughter. My daughter's gone into their house. They've come to my house. They don't care, and that's what being a neighbor is all about. You're not looking at the external. You're just, all you care about is if this person is a decent and good person. And I think that's what most people just want to get back to. But like I said, you have race hustlers on both sides. I deal with a lot of black race hustlers because I'm black. But there are white race hustlers. There are Asian race hustlers. There are Hispanic race hustlers. They're all over the place. So as long as we can get those people out of the equation, I think we're going to be okay.
When you went into your new neighborhood and you were greeted warmly by your neighbors, and you might have shed those beliefs that you used to have of the racism that you were told that you were going to find there, I would imagine that your happiness level has grown, that it must be much, much easier to get along when you can cast aside those fears that you're going to be judged based on the color of the skin and actually be treated like a human being that you are. Has your level of happiness increased?
Well, I moved out here without any expectations of any sort of racism or anything. I was just looking for a good neighborhood, that I could live in, and looking for good schools like anybody else. You want good schools, you want a good neighborhood, you want to feel safe, you want good businesses around you so you can go shopping, things like that. So I didn't come out here with any sort of preconceived notions or anything. I came out here and I said, hey, listen, I'm here, whether you like it or not. And like I said, all my neighbors have been extremely kind to me. Not even accepting. I don't want to use that word because it makes it seem like there was some sort of a prejudice beforehand. No, they all, we all just finished making plans to walk around the neighborhood for Halloween. So I mean, it's they treated me just like a person, not a black person, not anything else, just a person, which is all anyone can ask for.
That is the way. That is just the simple way to get along in the world. And the tribal identity markers that used to keep us safe should be fading away completely. It's just, there's that ebb where they come back and then they wash back into the sea. That's what I'm hoping for. But I really want to thank you for joining me today and expressing your views, and I wanted to just comment, thank God for people like you on social media that have profound effects on people's lives that they don't even know, and slowly begin the red pill process. Even if they don't attribute it to you, I just want to encourage you to keep going with that. And I know that you have to get going soon. So I just want to thank you for joining me on this exploration of American culture today.
No, thanks for having me on. It was a great discussion. Thank you
Yeah,
so
man.
much.